Welcome to Ahead of the Curve podcast. I'm Ashish, and today I have with me an associate professor of economics from Azim Premji University in Bangalore. He's one of the leading voices and the foremost torchbearer of the cause of pluralistic economics in India. I think he's an inspiration to those who think truly outside of the box and who have a sort of antecedent and a work to sort of reference themselves with so that they don't find themselves being extremely alienated. And he sort of accommodates all of our perspectives and, its historical antecedents and all of that. Welcome to Ahead of the Curve podcast, Dr. Alex M. Thomas. How are you?
Hi, Ashish. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. And I look forward, to listening to your questions and to
Yes.
respond to hopefully all of them.
Oh, yes, sir. So, sir, I mean, my first question to you is, did you choose economics or did economics choose you?
Okay. All right.
As an
So
individual.
yeah,
Or unusual.
it's maybe a difficult question to answer, but let me try. So when I was in class 8 and in ICSE board, there was this option of choosing either economics or computer science. And I think I went to computer science because I hadn't heard of economics before that. And I think computer science proved to be quite difficult. So then I shifted to economics. Even
Oh.
economics proved to be difficult, but I still stayed. And I think that it was in class 11 and 12 that I seemed to somehow be able to relate some things that were being taught in class with what I could observe outside.
Hmm.
Maybe aspects of poverty or inequality. These were things that were palpable and
Yeah.
easily observable. So I think there was some connection, and also the way the discipline sort of wrote about itself, or the textbooks I studied, also inspired me or made me interested a little bit.
Hmm.
And then I decided that I would go and study a BA in economics where I
In
can,
Chennai, Loyola
get
College.
into the subject.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I mean, that was the second decision, but the first decision was that to study BA in economics.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. But when did you first find that connect with economics as a subject? Like, I mean, people find themselves, if I may use the term, in equilibrium with the subject, if you know what I mean. That, the subject
Maybe, I
speaks to
mean,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
true, true. I, 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 I think a little bit in maybe class 10.
Hmm.
Um, if you were to really push me to give you a specific date, I think, or year, I think it would be in class 10.
Nice. It was in class then. Okay. When you had studied economics, I think you had joined Loyola in 2003. And I think the syllabus back
Yeah.
then is pretty much the same as the syllabus that is taught now with minor differences. The What we now know as the economic orthodoxy still prevailed in yesteryears as well. So for you personally, so what was the inciting incident to pursue heterodox economics as a cause, or even championing that? What led you to take the road less traveled? And that's it.
Okay, so I think it was so I got interested in economics in school, and then I was very excited to study economics for my bachelor's, and I joined Loyola College in Chennai. I mean, many things interested me of the curriculum, but there were always questions somehow that used to pop up. It was about the nature of assumption, sometimes the assumption of rationality,
Hmm.
the question of applicability of many of these models in the Indian context. So, by the end of the 3 years, I was left feeling that, okay, there were some issues that I did not really know how to deal with. There was some dissatisfaction, but I did not know what to do with those dissatisfactions. Okay, I
Hmm.
had these, if I mention, whether it's about the individual or about the applicability, but
Oh,
that was it. And then when I went to the University of Hyderabad to do my master's in economics, that is where I was exposed to alternative traditions in
oh,
economics.
interesting.
And yeah, in the first year of master's, we had a course on classical political economy and political economy of development.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where I came to know that, okay, there is mainstream economics and there are
It
different
is.
traditions or schools of thought in
Thought,
economics.
yeah.
So that is when I uh, decided that I need to learn all these schools of thought, at least know what's happening in them to decide maybe which one is most appropriate, which one
To
is
the
most logically consistent, which one is most applicable.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is really
the
trajectory.
Um, for me personally, though, sir, I mean, out of my dissatisfaction with economics taught in my 12th, I had my own ideas of of the little observations made, as in the case of rationality, as in the case of consumer behavior. And there was no reference point for me. So I started checking if there were people who thought like me before itself, and people who weren't covered in my textbook. And so that led me to the discovery of the various sort of modalities that we have. And then from then, I mean, I was content with the fact that I'm not the only one who spots the difference, that there has been this thing beforehand itself. But my question to you again is, sir, why don't most PhDs or why don't most, conventionally educated economic students see the other path? I mean, I've noticed one common pattern. Lots of the reputed professors and PhDs, they're not really aware of the other factions, right? Why is that? And what made you become aware of this? Is it the curriculum or is it their own personal curiosity sort of leading them to that discovery?
So I mean, personally, for me, I think having a curriculum that exposes you to different traditions and, for instance, Professor Omkarnath was my teacher of classical political economy, and Professor
Mm.
G. Vijay taught me political economy of development. I think that it was really inspiring for me because it was not just what happened in the classroom, but I could go to Professor Omkar's room and ask him for, okay, I read this. Can you give me more references? Because there's only so much you can cover in a classroom.
Yes.
So I think that it helped that
And
there were people in the department who were sort of well read and
amazing.
were
Yes.
broadly writing and thinking in these alternative traditions. So that is one. I think having teachers who could inspire you, who could
And
direct you to the right literature.
yes.
And those days, it was not that I would go and search on Google Scholar because I think it throws up all kinds of things. But
Yes.
the older tradition of the supervisor or the mentor really telling you, why don't you look at this book? Why don't you look at this article? And then, sort of systematically working your way through that.
Okay.
I think that was helpful. But I
Mm.
think equally helpful for me personally at the University of Hyderabad was to have classmates, later friends, and companions in this intellectual journey.
Okay.
So we would have endless discussions on, the problems with mainstream economics.
Amazing. Uh,
What is it that I read recently? And we still actually, I mean, some of us, a few of us still manage to have those kinds of discussions even now. Because I
amazing.
think you mentioned this earlier, and I think this is a very, very important point that often we might feel lonely and isolated in this journey
Exactly.
for various
Yes.
reasons, even if not just the school of thought. And I think it's very important to have fellow travelers where
Absolutely.
we share ideas. They say that what you're saying is not making sense. It forces you to
Sense.
read
Yes.
more. So I
Yeah.
think that this kind of interlocution debate is absolutely, absolutely
Necessary.
important, and which is why to have some kind of a community, of
Yes.
people who are thinking on similar lines, but maybe coming at it from different directions, but willing to have a conversation. So
Yes.
to me, if I were to again break it down, it would be to have teachers who could guide you
Mm.
and to have friends who are in this journey together.
Together. And
Because you can, of course, spend all your time talking to teachers who have other things to do, but then, friends in a way more available.
yes. I
Uh,
mean, personally for me, so that they don't sue me, I'm not going to mention their names. But I've had extremely fiery debates to a point where things might have even gotten physical at a certain
okay.
point in the discussion. It spirals into ad hominems and you don't know anything. And, it becomes a lot more conflicting rather than constructive. So, but then you mature and then you sort of, because they're of a different faction, they're of a different wiring, then their exposure is also limited. And even if their exposure is higher, their interpretation of that is limited. But as you say, I think without discussions, I don't think people can progress of either sides of the camp.
Yeah. And I think so. We used to have, so it was not that, of course, our class of masters people had different kind of persuasions, but they recognized that there was this different school of thought, or there are different schools of thought. They might not feel compelled, or they might not feel convinced, but at least there existed a different school of thought. So it was easier to argue from that basis. Now,
Mm.
if it is a situation that there's a group and that group thinks that there's only one school of thought,
Yeah,
then I mean, the discussions and debates are going to be
it's,
much, much, much more difficult.
yeah, yes, I think I've been part of this.
Yeah.
So I think, and I had to find a sort of reference for myself to understand the various modalities and the various sort of traditions, and that led me to one second. I'll just input the image. Is to purchase your book, sir, which is Pluralistic Economics and its History. I would recommend anyone who truly wants to understand economics, not just the other side, but economics in general, where ideas sprung from and where the reason why we learn what we learn today. I would recommend everyone to give this a read, please. I mean, this is a fantastic one. So I don't even think there's a Western counterpart to your book. I haven't personally discovered. The only um, history of economic thought was by Murray Rothbard, Austrian school economist. I think that's the only one I've come across which has a compendium. This is actually a compendium of various authors and their respective opinions and perspectives on the various compartments of economics. So,
Yeah.
so I
So,
have a couple of, yes, sir.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
No, no,
No,
please
I
go.
just wanted to add, uh, I mean, you mentioned so a little bit about the book, but so this is mainly, I mean, or mostly written practitioners of history of economic thought, a kind of reflective essays on either their contribution over their career, or it is the particular school of thought that they have engaged with the most,
Wait.
right, in this book. Now, there are many articles and books which exist who are written by historians of economic thought. There are several books. There are also specialized history of economic thought journals which
And
continue to publish research in this field. So,
yes,
I mean, and of course, there are many societies across the world, and actually, the Indian Society for History of Economic Thought, we established it last year.
hmm.
And we organize annual conferences. So, uh, things are happening in Australia, in Japan,
Japan and
in Latin America, in Russia, in the US. Of course, the number of people who are in this
involved.
community is relatively smaller, but it's, I mean, I think that it's quite an active and dynamic group.
uh, this thing. Nice. And but how did this book come about though? And why the specific authors that you would chosen to write the chapters for the compendium? Like, what was the
Yeah.
what significance did they respectively hold for each of the chapters they had written? Uh,
So the story behind the book was that in 2015, I think 2015, 16, my co-editor, Professor Ajit Sinha, was also at
Yes.
the Azim Premji
Shout out to Mr.
University,
Ajit
and
Sinha if he's watching this. Yeah.
yeah, and we were colleagues at that time. And then, so I'd known Ajit from before, from his work on history of economic thought, from his work on Sraffa and other classical political economists. And that maybe we could organize a workshop on history of economic thought. And we called it Economics and its History.
Yes, sir.
So then we thought we'll bring together people who we know have been working in this area, some people from India, some people from outside India. Um, and then we got some people to congregate. I mean, these were, and so the book was largely a result of that workshop in which papers were presented. And then there were some people who were invited to contribute also who could not make it to the workshop.
Okay.
So largely based on, yeah, so that is the real story of how it came about.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I thought what was interesting is because we had some papers on what I would call history of Indian economic thought towards the end of the volume. Not just,
The
let's say, classical political economy, institutional economics, post-Keynesian economics,
economics.
Marxian economics, ball race in general equilibrium. So
Yes.
it was more than that.
More than that. So I do have a general couple of questions related to the chapters of the book and what I've read and what I've personally sort of interpreted. Um, I think I would like to first start with heterodox economics in India. So in your book, I've seen that heterodox economics in India sort of blossomed out of a need to critique British policies that were unjust to us at that point in time. And the home tax, uh, especially, that sort of propelled us to look at policy making and economic policies in a different sense, in a nationalistic sense. But in a formal sort of academic space, have there been truly heterodox ideas that came from the sheer love for economics and the sheer love for how close you can come to reality? Any sort of theoretical contraptions, any models, any newer ways of experimenting with economics as an idiom that is truly Indian. Has that come about?
Okay,
Not a
so let me
nationalistic
try
sort of,
to,
yeah.
yeah. So it's a little, I mean, okay. Um, So in a recent paper, recent as in maybe into 2023, I had published a paper where I surveyed articles and books that were written on history of Indian economic thought
Hmm.
by scholars based out of India. And I mean, for the last 2 decades or so, it was a purposive kind of sampling. And one of the concluding points or questions that I ended with was, how do we characterize a work as Indian?
Yeah.
What does Indian economic thought mean? Is it that the author has to be of Indian origin?
Or
Is it that the author
yes.
should have worked in an Indian university? Or is it just enough that the author is born in India and then spends their time elsewhere
Okay.
outside? Or is it that the author could be anyone, but they have written about the Indian economy? Right now, in the literature, you find all these in some combinations have been used.
Okay.
And if you also historically take it back, uh, with as long as there have been trade, right? So before, let's say, the constitution of India as a nation as well, you had a lot of uh, circulation of ideas along with circulation of goods happening across the Indian Ocean. So there
Hmm.
is all kinds
Okay.
of circulation
Amazing.
of ideas that are happening. And again, when you say Indian,
Indian.
actually in globalized world, which has always been the case,
Yes.
um, uh, giving the the descript or the label of Indian or European,
No,
or
I
it's
mean,
all a
not.
little tricky.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, okay, forget the label of India. Let me rephrase this. Any truly heterodox idea that did not conform to the orthodoxy that came out of India, as most people are
Yeah.
conventionally
Okay.
educated in orthodoxy. So,
True. So, so one was about, I mean, I'm just saying that we need
yeah,
to problematize the Indian
yeah,
or
I
the
know.
European,
Yes.
all these labels a little bit
That
more.
came out of,
Uh, yeah. The other point is when we say heterodox, we are assuming the presence of an orthodoxy, right?
but
So,
assuming or is it, I
what it
mean,
means is
it
that,
exists, right?
well, heterodox only exists in opposition to
To the
orthodox,
orthodoxy,
right?
yes.
The way we think of heterodox is that you are opposing the mainstream, you're
Yes.
opposing the orthodox. Different periods of time have been different, right? So, what is mainstream? So, the chapter that you referred to, I think by Professor Sunanda Sen, when she is talking about heterodox ideas in India, it is a time of colonial rule.
Yes.
And orthodox ideas are being propagated by colonial administrators and Indian, well, economists or Indian scholars like Nauroji, Ranade
Hmm.
are questioning this. And they are using maybe similar concepts,
Hmm.
but they are infusing it with Indian conditions.
Yes.
So they're using maybe similar vocabulary, like this much tax is being taken out from India. So
Yes, sir.
the concept of taxation is understandable across, but the specific unique condition is being introduced. Right?
Hmm.
So uh, there is that. Now, if you take it a little way back, even in Europe for that matter, when Smith and Ricardo were writing, their economics was mainstream.
Yes.
But let's say from the 1870s onwards, the economics of Walrus and Menger slowly start to become mainstream. And
Yes.
that of Smith and Ricardo are sort of forgotten.
Yes.
Right? So what I mean is that at different points in time, we
Right.
need to study what is the mainstream
Hmm.
and then think of heterodoxy.
Heterodox.
So again, now going back to, so that's a broader kind of debate on what is,
Yes.
I mean, how to understand and situate heterodoxy. Now
Hmm.
to specific question of have there been Indian attempts to propose uniquely, well, yeah, whatever, Indian debates or Indian concepts, I would say yes. And some of the people that I am more familiar with,
Yes.
people like Krishna Bharadwaj. Now, Krishna
Hmm.
Bharadwaj was inspired by the work of this economist Piero Sraffa and
Of
by
course.
classical political economy.
Me. Shout out to Piero
Yeah.
Sraffa again. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so, and then she has worked on Indian economy by sort of applying some of these unique insights that she has got from this tradition, which is
Nice.
the sort of non-mainstream heterodox tradition.
Hmm.
Right. Another economist, because I'm working on her most recently, Kanta Ranadive, who was a teacher of Krishna Bharadwaj at, and later colleague, I think, but at University of Bombay.
Okay, sir.
She was inspired by the work of Karl Marx, and she
Yes.
tries to use that to understand Indian conditions.
Yes.
And then there is this other economist also I worked on called Arun Bose,
Yes, sir.
who taught Kirorimal University in Delhi for several years. He was
Hmm.
inspired by the work of Sraffa and Marx and really tries to synthesize Marx and Sraffa to understand
The
the Indian society.
Indian society. Okay. So,
Yeah. So I would say that people have utilized various kinds of paradigms to.
hmm.
Now, there's another, because you mentioned, I mean, I think earlier the Austrian School of Economics, B.R. Shenoy, who was
Hmm.
inspired by the Austrian School of Economics and used some of those ideas
Those.
in some debates on the Indian five-year plans.
Yes. Oh, it's just one small thing. So the meeting would end in about a minute. I'll be sending you the next link. Just give me 1 second. Uh, this
Sure.
part will be edited, cross-cutted just for your reference. So it'll be smoothest transition. Yeah.
Sure. That's fine. That's fine.
I'll
So
just
let's
send
maybe
the
meet in
second.
next link. Yeah.